So here's my little spiel today before we get into the gaming. It's on efficiency. Efficiency is something that is an obsession of mine. I'm always wanting to get the most out of everything I'm doing. Hence, I'm doing basically a little lecture video during a live stream, which I can then cut into a video. That's very efficient, right? It means less time doing and getting more out of it. This is what we really want with most of our activities as people. We want to get the most out of whatever we're doing. We want to work the fewest number of hours to get the most return, get the most money for the fewest amount of hours, most money for the least amount of effort, most gain for the least amount of input. We have a quest for efficiency. And for me, it's one of those things where, people are like, how do you get so much done? It's like, yeah, I'm very efficient. I'm actually not that efficient. There's people I'm sure who are way more efficient than me, but I just have a system and I stick to it, and so things get done over time. But just as an example, like, I need to mow the lawn. Boom, I put in my headphones and start listening to an audiobook because that's efficient. Now, here's the thing about efficiency. What's the point of being efficient? You have to stop and ask yourself that question. What is the point of being efficient? Well, the point of being efficient is to have more time to not be efficient. You can't relax and be efficient. So here's the great example. If you've ever been to Disneyland or Disney World or really any, say, big, expensive theme park, you might see this at Six Flags, but you definitely are going to see it at Disneyland if you ever go to Disneyland. And that is children crying. We used to call it like the meltdown hour or like the witching hour, where about 3 or 4 in the afternoon, all the kids start to melt down and cry and be completely upset, and parents are yelling at them, and everybody's miserable at Disneyland. It happens about 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Same thing at Disney World. So if you ever go there, watch for the meltdown hour. What's the meltdown hour? This is kids just get overwhelmed with shuffling around in a very chaotic and stimulating environment, and they just have a breakdown. They need a break from it. They need to not be efficient for all of that time. And what it is parents spend a lot of money to take a kid to Disneyland, and so they buy like 3-day park hopper passes for themselves, their wife. You buy one for yourself, your wife, maybe your 2 children, maybe 3 children. It adds up. It's a lot of money. So you're spending thousands of dollars to go to Disneyland. And so you start to have this efficiency mindset, investment, return. We spent this money. We should get something specific out of it. We should get the most out of our money that we have spent to go to Disneyland. That is to say, we need to ride the most rides. We need to see the most shows. We need to eat the most food. You can never have any moments that are wasted. Kids can't ride rides twice because you have to get through as many rides as possible. Like your goal is I want to do say Space Mountain. I got to get through every ride. That's that efficiency mindset. And parents will push their kids through this, and they'll be like, you know how much we spent to go on this trip? If you've ever been to Disneyland, you're going to have some dad or mom screaming at their kids about how much money they spent to go to Disneyland, and the kid's just crying. He can't handle it anymore. He's a 5-year-old. It's too stimulating. He's used to sitting in a little box all day doing handwriting assignments, and here he is at Disneyland, and he just doesn't want to do that next thing. So that's the efficiency mindset, basically penetrating a place where you really don't want efficiency. The point of being efficient in work is so that you can be inefficient outside of work. You don't work so that you can work even harder on the weekend. You should work so that you can relax on the weekend. And so to that end, real relaxation and real vacation is a vacation from efficiency. It's an ability to do what you want in the moment when you want to do it, to not feel compelled to have to do some quantity of things in any given day or in any given hour, and to be able to go with the flow. That really is relaxation. Especially if you're a parent and you have kids, the ability to say, I'm going to go take a nap for as long as I want is something that's very foreign. And I'm very efficient with my naps too. I'm going to admit this because I don't know, it's very bizarre. It's just part of my intense personality. I have a very I remember talking to a student years ago, Chino, it was his name, a really great kid. I think he joined the Navy. And anyway, I was just like, I just stopped it. I go, I realize I'm not a very laid back guy. He's like, you're just now realizing that? It's like, yeah, I always thought of myself as very relaxed and laid back, and it's because I have a plan and a process, and it's easy for me to do that. But I'm not laid back. I'm very intense. I'm like operating at maximum intensity pretty much all the time. one of the things and I do it with naps. So I will go down and I'll be like, okay, I have a process to get to sleep immediately. So I'll go and I'll like turn on some white noise, turn on my chili pad on my bed, like blackout curtains, lay down. I like go through a mental process where like I imagine some things. I like imagine this other land that my imagination goes to, and then I go to sleep. And then I have a timer that wakes me up in exactly 35 minutes, and I will wake up right before the timer goes off, check it, and be like, I have 2 more minutes. Time to get up. Perfect. And that power nap will just like power me through to like 1 a.m. in the morning. And then I'll do the same thing to go to sleep and wake up again at 7. So this is one of those things that I do is like I even nap efficiently, and I even have like an efficiency approach to napping because I'm trying to get in so much work every single day. One of the things I realized a long time ago, and this is in the book. Do I even have it here? Yes, I do. Efficiency. Keys to Prolific Creativity, which you can get on Amazon for $2.99 for the ebook. You have to consume art. That's like one of the things that's in here is you have to take in art. You have to be reading and doing things. I figured out that like the high anxiety level from pushing efficiency all day doesn't work when you're trying to go to sleep at night. So one of the things that I did is whenever I'm done with the work, I do things which are inefficient in order to relax and go to sleep. So that means that I close my Word documents. I turn off the camera if I'm doing something like this. Whatever I'm doing, I stop doing it. And I really like to go to another room. So this is one of the reasons that I like console games. Historically, I've always been a PC gamer, but I've really, over the last few years, come to really love consoles. Better in a lot of senses because I can leave this space where I work all the time, go to my living room, and no distractions. It's like being back in 2002 where you can put a game in your system and just play without any distractions. Do that until I feel tired, and I will start to feel tired from the inefficiency, and then I'll be able to go to sleep. Or I'll read, and I will read at my own pace. And I like to read physical books. I've stopped with most of the ebook stuff because I read ebooks differently. I read them efficiently. Audiobooks are an efficiency exercise. So a lot of audiobooks, I like nonfiction stuff for audiobooks because I process it differently. But if I'm opening up Lord of the Rings, like I've decided to reread Lord of the Rings this year because I haven't read it in so many years, I'll stop and I'll very closely read a poem. I'll read a paragraph and go back and read something else again. I read with highly variable speeds and not necessarily linearly within a page, depending on what I feel like. Let me read this part again, and just having closer reading in a more inefficient approach to reading. I don't have to read this book quickly. I've noticed that a lot of times I just try to read books efficiently. I got to read this book. Let me just read through it and it'll be done. And I'll take it in and it'll be done. That's not fun, right? That's not fun. That's efficiency. That's work. So if you feel like your life is all work, it's probably because you're taking that efficiency mindset outside of its appropriate place in your work approach, where it is good to be efficient. You really want to be efficient with your work. Efficiency with writing is a different discussion, but we're just mostly talking about your time here. Be efficient with your work so you can be inefficient on the weekend. So when you wake up on Saturday, you can take a breath and be like, it's 9 a.m. I could play World of Warcraft. It's 9 a.m. on Saturday. I could play World of Warcraft until 9 a.m. on Monday. This is going to be great. That's the way that you want to be able to live your life, so that when you get to that point of relaxation, you don't feel like you have to be efficient. And in fact, that's the way I used to feel like waking up on Saturdays to play World of Warcraft, or it could be whatever game that you want to play in the morning or whatever you want to do. And I'm going to wake up and I'm going to watch a movie and I'm going to read a book, whatever you want to do to relax on your day. This is also the benefit of having a Sabbath, right? If you're Jewish and you celebrate the Sabbath religiously, that means that you're really going to have some distraction-free time for study, recharge, relaxation, reading, whatever you're going to do. And as Christians, we really should do that on Sunday as well. We should, instead of doing work tasks on Sunday should be for our enjoyment, our hobbies, our family, things like that, and going to Mass, of course. So that's a big thing. That lack of efficiency during the day will recharge you and make you more efficient during the week. Efficiency is not always efficient. If you're operating at 100% capacity all the time, you're going to burn out. It's going to happen. I've talked about it in this book. That's the thing about riding sprints, is after about 6 weeks of being like maximum force, you're going to get really burned out. 6 weeks is pretty much the max for like high intensity stuff. Even, if you look at, say, like military, the way military set things up, a lot of things happen in these 6 week blocks, like a 6 week training, and then you have 6 weeks of less intense stuff, even with really high level programs. And that's because it's really hard to maintain focus and things after 6 weeks. So anyway, efficiency is not always efficient with that. So this last vacation I went to see my mom over the 4th of July. I had a bunch of downtime. I had a bunch of stuff we couldn't do. It was too hot to go outside and do adventures. It was like 105. It's 111 today in Modesto. I'm going to turn down my AC. Oh yeah, I'm glad about it. So what did I do? I had my Vita. I got some new trigger grips. I'm not crazy about these, but they work really good for certain games because this is actually operates the touchpad. Anyway, I had that, and I'm like, man, I felt so nostalgic for Final Fantasy X. So I loaded it up. I have it on the Vita, the HD remaster, which is weird because this is not actually HD. It's like 540p. But anyway, it looks really good on there. And I played it, and then I was like, man, I'm going to play this a little bit later in the year. It's a little bit inefficient for me to play it now. I'm like, I'm going to play Final Fantasy X too. And it was this game, and I'll tell you about Final Fantasy X too, and we'll play a little bit today. If you're watching this after the fact, it may be like on the live stream and not on this separate video. My friend and roommate, and now my brother-in-law, he got it when it came out, and he's like, this is the girliest game I ever played. I hated it. It started with this J-pop song, and I like threw it away, right? I'm like, okay, so this game, I haven't really played it. I went and played it. Yeah, it's definitely like an otaku kind of game, and girly in a lot of different ways. But man, the gameplay was good, and it was just so good to be able to sit down on the couch and play a game for a couple hours without having any other demands on my time and no distractions, no phone poking at me and yelling at me, and no feeling that I had to I didn't even bring a computer to open up my computer and work on the book, to be working on the channel or something like that. There was just I didn't have to do any of that while I was away. And so that was really good experience to be inefficient for a little while. If we want to take this a little bit further with efficiency is not always efficient, just put it in economic terms. For those of you who really like those kinds of more concrete arguments, let's say that you have an area that produces agricultural products, and I live in one. Now, because of the climate, it might be really well suited to growing something like sugarcane, let's say. So it can grow sugarcane really well. It grows other crops at a reduced effectiveness. It's a little bit less efficient to grow sugarcane. And then there's an economic efficiency. Sugarcane might be what is the best to trade. So you can trade sugarcane abroad, and it's super easy to grow, and so it's really profitable to make sugarcane and just trade it for the food that you don't grow, that you choose not to grow near you. That's maximum efficiency. You are producing the highest economic output gain for your crop, which is going to be sugarcane in this example, and you're just able to trade for everything else that you want. That's the nature of economics, is you're trying to be very efficient. You're trying to do the thing which you do the best at the highest capacity, which gets you the most money, and then you're going to trade for everything else that you don't do. And there's even things like alternate utility that you can keep in mind. For instance, if let's say you have a lawyer and a secretary, the lawyer could be a better typist than the secretary, but it's more efficient for the lawyer to be a lawyer because that makes more money for him, not being a typist, even if he's a better typist. So your crop for sugarcane, it's just the best crop you can grow there, and you can trade it. Now, what happens during a war or some other economic crisis? What happens if there's a cane beetle that comes in and wipes out your sugarcane crop? Well, all of a sudden, you have no ability to trade for other crops, and in fact, you have to plow over your fields, plant the crops which you had been trading for, and wait a year for them to come to fruition so that you can then gather them. That's a massive inefficiency. So because you chose to maximize efficiency and not have any kind of other backup crop, you end up in a position where when a black swan event happens, when some sort of random event that is like a war or economic disruption happens, you are going to lose all of the gains from the efficiency that you had. You're going to lose a lot of money and time, and maybe even end up in a famine because you didn't diversify enough. This is why financial planners tell you to diversify your portfolio. Well, that Apple stock does really well, but you should probably have some things that aren't Apple stock. Why would you? Apple stock does the best. Because if the Apple stock ever tanks, you are SOL. You are shit out of luck, and it's going to be bad. So efficiency is not always efficient. That's why you want a little bit of diversity in what you're doing. We can see this with our microchip shortage. If you're having trouble getting a PS5, you ain't the only one. The reason is because nobody can get anything from China right now, because it's like, well, we're going to put everything in, we're going to have everything manufactured in this area in China where it's really efficient to do it, because it's more efficient to do one thing here and one thing here and one thing here. And then all of a sudden, when there's a pandemic and an economic disruption, political disruptions, you can't get the semiconductors and you can't manufacture the product. Even if there's an abundance of all the other parts, there's some little part that is been disrupted that you can't make. Or if you want to make it here, you have to stop and retool and redesign your manufacturing process and develop new machines that are going to build the part more locally so that you can actually finish making the product. That's a huge loss of efficiency. So efficiency is not always efficient. It's not efficient as a creative person. You have to spend time watching movies, reading books, playing games, having fun. And it's not efficient on an economic sense either. So if you get trapped into that feeling like, I got to be efficient all the time, that's the problem. It's not inefficient. Well, one more example, which is game design. I know I've been talking for a while, almost like 20 minutes about efficiency, but hey, we're going to be a little bit inefficient with this video. One of the reasons that I think World of Warcraft, as a specific example, has gotten worse over the years is because of efficiency, a push towards making the player experience completely efficient. And as players, the push towards having to be efficient all the time in order to actually play the game. And so these things kind of intersect each other, penetrate each other, and you end up with a game that feels like work. So how does this happen? Let's go back. If you look at Classic WoW, Classic WoW was very inefficient. A lot of the things that people really loved about WoW back in 2005 and 2006 disappeared from WoW because of basically improvements to the game that you really wouldn't think about, like the group finder. The reason the group finder is bad is not because it's bad per se, but because it's too efficient and it eliminates a bunch of the things that emerged from the game design of the original game because of its inefficiency. So let's say you wanted to do a dungeon. You're out in the Barrens and you want to do a dungeon. You want to do Wailing Caverns, which is the dungeon out there, the main one. There's also RFK, RFD, but let's say you want to do that. But there's going to be 3 dungeons out there, so people will be looking for groups. You go out there looking for a group, looking for more Wailing Caverns. And so you spend 15, 20 minutes out there finding other people to join your group. So while you're spending those 15, 20 minutes out there finding people to join your group, what are you doing? Well, you kind of want to be efficient. You talk to people. You make Chuck Norris jokes in Baron's chat. You maybe go grind some zebras or something to get a little bit of experience, to make that experience grind a little bit easier. You start doing a bunch of things that are, maybe you do some crafting. Maybe you walk around and mine. You go try to find some copper mines. So all of the things that you would do in these gaps that exist are part of what makes the game fun. The social aspect of World of Warcraft emerged from the inefficiency of the game. And indeed, that's why EverQuest was so social, is because it was very inefficient. It took a lot of time to do things, and so the social interactions kind of emerged from that lack of efficiency. So once you get your Wailing Caverns group together, then you have to go over to the dungeon and wait for everybody to get there. Then together you have to go clear the mobs up to the dungeon itself, go into the instance, and then do the entire instance. And it's going to take hours to do that. And so the lack of efficiency of doing that is what created those bonds. You spent a bunch of time talking to those people in party chat while you got out there, talking to them in party chat or in Vent or TeamSpeak, whatever voice chat you're using. As you cleared the mobs and got to the dungeon, you spent time interacting with them through the dungeon. Maybe you invited someone to your guild. Maybe you put them on your friends list and you did more dungeons, and you created this web of social connections because of the inefficiency of the game. As the game got more efficient, there started to be less reason to do that and less opportunity to do it. Why would you put someone on your friends list to do dungeons if you can just auto queue into a dungeon and to just teleport you to the dungeon? You don't have to walk out there. There's no reason to talk to the person because you can now clear the mobs more efficiently. You don't have to spend time drinking between every pull because they improved that. They sped up the gameplay, and all of a sudden there's no group chat anymore. Group chat doesn't exist in World of Warcraft because it's too efficient. And likewise, now when you log into the game, you have a big list of crap you have to do every day, and that's not fun. It's like, oh, I need to do my renown quest. I gotta go to Torghast. I gotta, I gotta do some world quests. You have this big list of crap that you have to do. What felt great about EverQuest and early WoW was you could log into the game with no agenda and you would still want to log in. You could log in and not know what was going to happen in a given play session and know that you were going to have fun. You were going to find something fun to do, or you're going to chill out in the inn and talk to people, whatever you're going to do. So the extreme efficiency towards design and trying to keep players busy all the time makes the game feel like work. And that's the point where it's like, I got to unsub, because not only am I not having fun goofing off with friends, I'm logging in and it's just like a task list. If I want a task list, I'm going to turn off the game and I'm going to start working on something that gives me more fulfillment from a task list, other than, oh, I got a piece of gear that's going to help me do the next task better. You know what I mean? So other than, say, like raids, World of Warcraft has lost. Raids still have an inefficiency to them where you're sitting around doing boss strats, maybe BSing with some friends or something in the raid. But other than that, there's really no social aspect because the game's too efficient. And I've been playing Final Fantasy XIV, and it's a very efficient game as well. And so for the same reasons, it's not nearly as social as an old school MMO, but that's just because it's a lot more efficient. If you go back and play Final Fantasy XI, a very inefficient game, there's this community. Well, the community exists because the game is not that efficient. So that's efficiency. Efficiency isn't always efficient. When things are not 100% efficient, other things are able to emerge. You're able to develop social relationships, friendships, things like that. Fishing with a fishing pole is not efficient, but you get to spend time drinking beer and talking to your friends. That's what makes fishing fun, is, having the fun out at the lake with your friend, drinking the beer, smoking your pipe, doing whatever it's going to do. So anyway, that's efficiency. Now let's be efficient with this and maybe get to playing some games. I will get to the chat first. All right.